Hey everybody, Josh Sigurdson, a World Alternative Media here, and of course we're joined by author and economic analyst here at WAM, John Sneisen, over the border this time because of course I'm in Las Vegas and he is still stuck in frozen Canada. But we got a lot to talk about today because we have been kind of dropping the ball on getting lots of reports out for multiple reasons, and today we got a really big story that you may have heard of already, but let's really go into this because this is incredibly important. And that is from this Financial Post article, which says, Statistics Canada looking at people's banking records. Now that's going too far. And as the article goes into, Statistics Canada is the agency that collects data on Canada's economy, society, and environment. The purpose is to provide decision makers with key information to function effectively. On the face of it, the mandate makes sense, but now the agency wants to collect people's individual banking transactions and sensitive personal identification information. Has it gone too far? Under the Statistics Act, the agency is required to collect, compile, analyze, abstract, and publish statistical information relating to the commercial, industrial, financial, social, economic, and general activities and condition of the people of Canada. By law, all Canadian households must complete a census of population survey. Businesses are also obligated to provide information on labor force and agricultural surveys. The Act also calls for a fine of up to $500 and or up to 3 months in jail for refusing to participate in a mandatory survey. In other words, the law provides the agency with powers that may be viewed as excessive by some, or anyone that has any brain whatsoever that believes in freedom. Anyway, going on, it says, this brings me to my next point concerning government data collection. Some years ago, the Harper government decided to eliminate the long-form census, which collected data about housing, transport, employment, income, and other key attributes required by various tiers of governments to plan and deliver public services. The protest from then chief statistician Munir Sheikh led to him resigning his position. In some ways, I can understand the concern about who collects data and for what purpose, but at what point are the agency's powers too excessive? And again, I'm going into someone's op-ed, obviously, here on this article. And going on, it says, the ability for governments to collect data through the information system is so easy that what is being collected should concern citizens. Global News reported this week that the Canadian government will be asking financial institutions to collect and provide data from some 500,000 Canadians without their knowledge. According to Global, the National Statistical Agency plans to collect individual level financial transaction data and sensitive information like social insurance numbers from Canadian financial institutions to develop a new institutional personal information bank. Global also reported that StatCan has been lifting up to 15 years of credit rating information from international credit rating firms, possibly affecting millions of Canadians. What is more alarming is that Prime Minister Justin Trudeau is defending these actions, insisting that high quality and timely data are critical to ensuring that government programs remain relevant and effective for Canadians. This is despite the fact that this latest collection of data is being done without the consent of Canadians. It seems that citizens' personal privacy is not a concern for this government. And I want to also add here that he says ensuring that government programs remain relevant and effective for Canadians. First of all, no government programs are relevant and none of them are effective, at least in the way they want, maybe at failing terribly and screwing people over and putting people into debt and extorting their money. But folks, this is a huge story because this is exactly what we've been talking about for I don't know how long, about places like China, about places like India, Australia, Sweden, this push towards a centrally planned cashless system where India is giving homeless people free bank accounts under the guise of convenience, while really it's just to track everyone, control everyone, and have complete control over the extortion of the masses. John, what do you think about this?
Well, Josh, this is a very good start of a big problem that is, of course, the lack of privacy in our world today. And this is not going to make it better. This is going to be so much worse. They can misuse this information on so many levels. It just baffles me that anybody should let anybody their private information from their banking, being able to have the government take a look at that. That would, of course, they're not gonna, it's just that's Canada that's gonna use that information. Well, what if they find some information that looks at transactions that are highly suspicious and tax avoidance and so on in there? What do you think that it would take for them to just, hey, take this information, CRA, and we're not going to tell the person that we took their information and gave it to you, and then suddenly CRA is doing an audit on you out of nowhere. That would never ever happen, of course, because the government really cares about your privacy and taking care of your individual rights, Josh. I mean, we all know that that's just an utter pile of bull. And it's not, I don't know what to say about these. That's basically like an Orwellian implementation of taking central planning to another level of trying to control, they say government policies. The problem is that the government shouldn't need any private free market information, because it shouldn't meddle in the free market in the first place. It shouldn't even
or
be
else it
there.
won't be free.
Yeah, exactly, Josh. This is so stupid. I'm not even sure what to put a name on it, of the insanity, and of course the census in itself, like being 3 months jail time for not giving your private information to the government. That is also another Orwellian problem that we have here in Canada, with massive implications of our rights and everything getting infringed upon, Josh.
And I want to also mention that they also go on in this article to mention that, it could put your information at risk of being compromised by, criminal entities and stuff like that. Well, of course, because the government is running on systems that are like 20, 30 years outdated. We talk about this a lot in the blockchain community. It's absolutely absurd. And we saw this similar thing happen in India, which has a much more high-tech system than Canada. And they were hacking that system like nothing. And they were selling the information for almost nothing. So, I mean, again, this is not just compromising for the reason that an organized crime gang called government has all your information and can track you down and throw you in prison and treat you terribly, and maybe even later on use it for a social credit score system, which we'll get into after. But they can also, smaller, tinier, criminal gangs can also get a hold of this information by hacking the government. So I want to get into that cashless proponent, because this is really important, because we have seen that incremental frog boil towards a centrally planned cashless society for a long time now. And I think that this is really important to hit on with this subject that I haven't seen other people talking about, is that China and India have a vast control over, the banking information and tax information of the populace under that cashless system that they are pushing at such a vast speed. Something that I was called crazy for talking about 10 years ago, and now here we are. We have that Black Mirror episode type, social credit score, Sesame credit score system, where people that have a low score because they criticize the government, for example, aren't able to buy vehicles, they aren't able to go to dinner at certain places, they can't rent, they can't buy, they are basically screwed, and they have to be super obedient to get back to where they, started. And that is exactly what any government, any sane government, whatever you would define that as, in the world would want people to be in that situation, because it means they have more control. So, as we see that centrally planned cashless society unroll, remember, if your money's in the bank, it's not yours, it's a bank's. And if your money's always going through the banks via digital transactions and legal tender laws, it's never your money, it's always a bank's, and you are essentially enslaved to the government and the banking system exactly where they want you, in debt servitude. And when you have the government looking at all your banking information, they unroll that cashless society next, you are put into that system, all your banking records are in there, they have a social credit score that they bring up or implement if they actually succeed at this insanity. Then what's going to happen then? Are we still going to be apathetic? Are we still going to be sitting here with our, tail between our legs? What do you think, John?
Well, I think the problem is going to be that they really want to push this cashless society into a system here in Canada And I think this is a perfect first step of creating almost like a social credit score type of system, even like as a secondary way of looking at information and taking information through another agency that by law you're forced to give up that information. I think it's more of a push towards getting as much information on you as possible. Now, of course, they have major access to all these social media outlets that we have today. And what would it take for the government to just add that social media and your interactions with that onto the platform of a credit score, for example, and the Stats Canada? They're talking about the government getting more ways of easily putting out more better policies. I think it's more about the government being able to see more and more of what their citizens are doing, and who knows who these 500,000 citizens are, Josh. They might be targeted by the government because the government doesn't like them, and now they have a blanket check of going in and checking out everything about you without your consent. You have never consented about giving this information to the government, and the government are just there to sit there and literally tell you that, yeah, we need this information, and nobody's going to know who actually gets their information taken by the government, because this is it's all anonymous and nobody would know anything about who it is and so on. I don't buy it, Josh. I think that with Trudeau and the background of his dad, Pierre, looking at the social, the Liberals and the social control that they want, I think we're up for a disaster here if we let this keep on, going on. And they should go in there. They should abolish the census in the first place, because it's huge infringement of my personal rights as an individual, of the government forcing me to give up all my private information in the first place. So I think the Canadians needs to stand up against this and stop it dead in its tracks, because if we let this happen and this bozo that runs the country here in Canada are able to get this forward, it could be severely misused. We were talking about it being stolen from others. I'm more worried about it being stolen by the government in the first place, because who knows what they're going to do with it, as I said, Josh.
Yeah, and finishing it off, John, let's talk about why they are doing this, which is the craziest part, because we have this incredibly bankrupt banking system that is on its knees. I mean, the cash to deposit ratio, as you've gone into, John, it shows that these places are bankrupt. People always get shocked when I tell them that most of these places have cash to deposit ratio around 5% to 1%. Sometimes, in many cases, actually, with credit unions, under 1%. And we're talking cash or deposits covered in cash. These places are bankrupt. The fractional reserve system and the zero reserve system are crumbling down as we see these banks pump massive amounts of fake currency into the economy. We see this vast amount of debt sewage everywhere. We see this mass system built up one by one peg after another, with bloated horses that's just been pushed off for way too long. It's all getting too heavy. It's all crumbling. It's all going to come down. It has to eventually. We just can't put a date on it. But nonetheless, all fiat currencies eventually revert to their true value of zero. Always have, always will. Going back to 1024 AD in China, and this time isn't any different. And when we see them kind of maneuvering towards this kind of thing where they have people's information, their banking information, they're pushing to that cashless society, this is out of desperation. They want to find one way or another to protect themselves when everyone does a run on the bank. And even at this point, if everyone runs on the bank, they're not going to be finding any money in that bank. I mean, there's almost nothing left. You'll want to be the early bird there, because folks, these banks are bankrupt, they are scandal prone, they are fraudulent, and people keep falling for it, thinking they have to be dependent on these entities. It's safer to really have it in a safe, in my opinion, than have it in a bank in a country where you're allowed to arm yourself anyway. But John, what do you think about the combination of the desperation of these leaders and quote unquote leaders and banking system as they push into this technocratic society?
Well, Josh, I think this is what any government would do throughout time, and now, of course, what, as you said, technocratic with all the technology and everything that's in place now. I think this is a wet dream for any totalitarian state that would have lived throughout history. If you had, Hitler or any other totalitarian leader, they would just love this. Look at what China is doing with their social credit system, Josh. This is just such a dangerous move that we're doing. As of course, as you said, the banking system is struggling here in Canada. We're hitting peak debts in so many levels on the credit cards, on housing, on car loans. Everything is just crumbling down, and as we see it everywhere around the world as well. We're hitting that level where there's manipulation of markets from these central banks, including the Canadian Central Bank here, put interest rates at record lows. They destroy the economy by distorting capital and making money cheap, making people making stupid bets into the economy by the cheap money because they have no clue about economic sense and what makes sense to do, because the stock markets and the housing markets has constantly been going up, and everybody's out there on of course mainstream media telling us that everything's gonna go up, nothing is bad here, there's nothing bad to see, let's just keep on
nothing to see here
partying as everything is crumbling down. I think this is just another push, and of course I warned about this, Josh, back with my book Canada, the Greatest Economy in the World, when I wrote it back in 2015. I was warning about that we would see more and more debt, and from that, a crumbling system, because it's unsustainable. We reaches that hockey stick moment where there's so much more increasing interest cost, and now of course with interest rates going up as well, Josh, now this whole paper Ponzi scheme is coming down really hard, because people are not aware and understanding of the whole system in itself, and the big risk here is of course the pensioners that think that they have a retirement coming their way. When they're retiring, they are of course have to exit out of the markets. They got to sell all their assets in their mutual funds and so on here in Canada, in their RSPs. They also got to sell and downsize most likely in the housing market as well. And who's going to buy all these assets that are coming onto the markets now in the 10 years ahead? I believe we're going to see this whole system that has been built up on fake money is just going to come down, Josh, because when you corrupt the monetary system like this and try to centrally plan it, you corrupt the whole society, you corrupt every single transaction that are made, because you're destroying the value of the medium of exchange. And this is so important, that when you do that, you destroy society. And we could start putting a lot of lines in between, looking at the historical past, not just Canada, but everywhere in the world, the Roman Empire, the French Revolution, all these times when the currencies have collapsed. It always happens the same way. It's a massive boom, and then it's a massive collapse after, when nobody's able to pay off the debt, because you have the interest that doesn't exist. It's not printed. When you take money out of the bank out of nowhere, the bank prints it out of nowhere, and then you got to pay that interest down. It doesn't come get printed at that time, so you need more debt and more debt and more debt and more debt until the whole thing is collapsed.
Yeah, boom bust. So like we always do here at WHAM, we'll have to talk about the solutions, because that's the most important part, because as we see so often, we have all these medias that scare us without giving us solutions, and I think it's best that we're scared and we're given solutions, because we need to know the truth, and then we need to aid the truth with our own actions, being individuals, free, self-sustainable, responsible, financially educated. But let's look at things that have worked over history. I mean, it's as simple as food, water, shelter, self-defense, or you're not gathering things for the toughest guy on the block. Gold, silver as wealth insurance, not investment advice. It's my opinion, but nonetheless, it's gold and silver. Look into history, right? It doesn't take much. Yeah, and then, of course, cryptocurrencies that have sound fundamental value, that are decentralized. Look into it, do your own due diligence. Most are terrible. There's a few really, really amazing ones, though, so it's worth checking out, understanding the infrastructure, understanding the decentralized blockchain technology, and going from there. But with that said, it's been a little while since we got a video up, so I appreciate you all watching. I appreciate everyone that's given support over a bit of an issue, a difficult time over the last week after I got poisoned. So I appreciate everyone that has reached out, and we got a huge amount of people commenting on our community page here on YouTube. It's funny that when I almost die, suddenly everyone gets a notification from Wham, but then when we post a video, it's like, oh, we got 14 out of 89,000 people have pressed like on the community notification post. It's very, very strange, but of course that's the way algorithm works here on YouTube. But we really appreciate everyone for tuning in. We will be doing a lot more videos like this here at Wham for the next month until John is in town, and then I'm going to Canada right after he leaves back for Canada. I'll be leaving back for Canada. We're going to be doing a lot of stuff. I'll be in Canada for about 17 days, or no, maybe 15, I forget. As small amount of time as possible. I'm trying to avoid the winter here, guys. But we are going to be doing videos in Vegas soon. We are going to be doing videos in California soon with G. Edward Griffin and others. And then we're going to be doing some videos in Canada. But until then, a lot of these kinds of videos. Stay tuned. Let us know what you think, what we can improve on. We're just kind of going off the cuff with this stuff and seeing what we can do here. But I think it can work very well. I feel more interview style back and forth here with the way we're kind of going there, because neither of us can cut each other off because it'll just start glitching out the whole system. So it actually works pretty good. Anyway, so thanks for going into this with us, John. And until next time, this is Josh Sigurdson and John Sneisen signing out from World Alternative Media. Find the truth,
be the change.
Like what you see here at WAM? Don't forget to check the links below. GoFundMe, Patreon. We can't do it without you. Any donation is very much appreciated, especially as we are so vastly demonetized and censored on YouTube, as these guys come in and flag all of our content as hate speech. Also, check out our Bitcoin address below, as well as on the screen for you to scan if you please. And also check us out at steemit.com. We're at Josh Sigurdson. It's a future of social media where you get paid in the upvote of your post in cryptocurrency, Steem that is. So make sure to check us out there. Make sure to join us at Anarchapulco 2019 with people like Ron Paul, G. Edward Griffin, of course, Jeff Berwick, Vid Jedlicka. So many incredible speakers are going to be speaking. It's just a massively growing event. It is something you have to see to believe. So make sure to check it out below and save money on your tickets by using promo code WAM, that's WAM, and I hope to see you there. Also, check out our newsletter as we are getting demonetized and censored and all that. We don't know what comes next, so we have an email, worldalternativemedia@gmail.com. Send us an email with subject line yes, YES, and we will include you in the newsletter where we will continuously keep you updated. So until next time, thanks for watching, everyone. This is Josh Sigurdson signing out from World Alternative Media. Find the truth, be the change.
I'm sure you have already changed people's minds in your young age because you're involved, and I like that.